Welcome back, everyone. You know this new school year is going to be different than any other year. And a lot of times I talk about how hard it's going to be on parents, but of course, really, it's all about the kids. And we want to make sure they're prepared for all of these changes. That's why we're visiting with Dr. Renee Renardi today to get some important advice on preparing our families as a whole for, something that we feel like back to school is routine and doesn't change, but everything has changed for this year.
It sure has. And so it's really important to remember that while sitting with uncertainty is uncomfortable, fighting it is way worse. And so we really want to embrace this uncertainty and look at some of the positive things that can come out of this. And it's really important to look at this as really an amazing opportunity for our children and ourselves to practice and to learn some emotional tolerance and also some transition management skills. So we can talk this morning. There's so many things that we can do about this. I specialize in anxiety disorders, so uncertainty comes up all the time.
And so exactly what you just said. Well, I love that we're going to look for the positives in this. It doesn't have to be necessarily a bad thing. Where do parents start?
Well, there's lots of things that we can do as parents, as educators, as community members to help children go through these transitions. And like I said, to really learn some good skills that come out of it. The first thing that we can do is to focus on the things that our children can control. So being able to follow guidelines, not sharing items at school, practicing social distancing, washing their hands for 20 seconds. Things like that can be really important to give them that internal locus of control. We also want to encourage flexibility and reward adaptability. So when something didn't go as planned, to really say, hey, I really like how you handled that. You were being really flexible. That's going to be an important thing to do as we move forward these next several weeks. Discussing plans that are currently in place, letting our kids know, okay, this is what we have planned. This is what it's going to look like, whether we're staying home to educate our children or if our kids are going back into a learning environment at school. So to kind of give them an idea for what that might look like, to discuss changes that they may expect too. So they're going to go back to some different circumstances. Some of their friends might have opted to, stay at home and maybe they're going into school. So talk about those changes with our kids as much as we know anyway. Focusing on short-term goals. So if your child plays a sport or something like that, we're not looking at, okay, we're going to win state this year, but it's focusing more on, okay, this week, let's focus on this, so that we're not just looking at the long game, but looking at the short game, because things might change along the way. We still want to keep routines and structure. So it's really good to still have some of those back to school routines, doing the back to school shopping. I know I'm not going to buy as many clothes for going back to school, just in case she's in her play clothes most of the day, but to still give that sense of routine, to say, hey, guess what? It's back to school time. If you're educating your children at home, to still go through that excitement and that process too. We don't want our kids to miss out on that.
Preparing and having, some of these examples discussed with your kids I feel like gives them power and helps reduce anxiety, which is incredible. But there's still going to be some anxiety. How do you spot that, and how do you know when something needs to be done?
And that's really important to understand that there are emotional considerations to take with this. We do have to talk to our kids about this. Giving them that sense of empowerment and problem solving and all that is fantastic. That's really what we want to cultivate. But we also have to listen to their concerns. We have to be able to have conversations with our children about family challenges that are child appropriate. And that takes finding some balance, but it can be really helpful for our kids to share examples of how your family has overcome hardships in the past. So it doesn't feel like this is, the first time your family's ever gone through something difficult. And that's an important thing to remember for ourselves too, honestly. It is important to address that grief that they're experiencing of not having the same senior year that they were expecting, or, going into middle school, it's going to look a little bit different. Or maybe they are staying home because of family choices and unique circumstances. and maybe they miss going into school. So it is important to be able to identify emotions and also know that there's strategies to deal with uncomfortable emotions. We do still want to look at the positives, practice gratitude log, also having time for kids to de-stress, doing child-centered activities, allowing time for play. I think it's also really important right now to cultivate compassion. People are going through so much, not just our own families, but other kids returning back to school. Maybe they've had some economic problems. Maybe there are some racial issues that might come up in a school setting. Maybe there's going to be political issues that come up in the school setting. So it's really important for kids to be able to take the perspective of another person, to know that it's okay for them to have their own life experiences and opinions, but to teach them to be active thinkers and to be able to be compassionate for other people who might have different experiences. A kid who has decided to stay home and they're going into school, that's fine. So not everybody has to be my way or my family's way, but being able to understand things from multiple angles is such a great life skill for our children to learn. And of course, lastly, self-care, paying attention to sleep, decreasing screen times, taking care of ourselves as parents, reaching out and getting help if we need additional resources. The CDC has some great tips on back to school. So does the American Academy of Pediatrics. You can talk to a therapist. You can talk to your pediatrician. There's lots of help out there to give you some help to help your family or to seek out some professionals who can work with your family during this time.
Dr. Renee Renardi, as always, great information, great life lessons as well in preparing our kids for this upcoming school year. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back here on North Dakota Today.